Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast Super One. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 146 of Podcast Super One. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way, you're up to date on all future episodes of Podcast Super One on youtube.com/Super Studios, the best place to consume the content. And if you didn't know, and man, you probably didn't, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Kapow. Little ASMR for you guys.
Yes.
Daniel, it's episode 146. We took a small little hiatus there for Christmas break, but we'll be picking up pretty soon. We got a lot of content coming up this year. And of course, the last movie that come out, the last big movie that come out in theaters is now the number one movie of 2022. And it will soon be part of the 2 billion club as part, not the podcast, but I do all the time. It's Avatar: The Way of Water. And yeah, we saw it together. I come back in Arkansas to watch it. And what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so just to set up a little bit, I enjoyed 2009's Avatar, or I think it was 2009, 2010. 2009, it was. It was my freshman year of college. I remember it well, going several times with friends to see it in 3D at the IMAX, actually, in Chenal. I remember a specific point. And, I liked the film. I feel like I was like most people. I enjoyed it and like it was cool, but like it really quickly left my thoughts. I didn't like think about that movie a lot, and I haven't really since. You know what I mean? Like it was impactful because of like I think back to 2009 Avatar. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that, but I remember it more because everyone was talking about it, less than like huge. The movie was so memorable. Does that make sense? It was more.
Yeah, it still is the biggest movie of all time,
And I just remember everyone talking about it, and like the commercials were nonstop for it. I felt like more than I remember, like, seeing the movie was the experience, if that makes sense. And so coming into this one, I think I was not expecting to be blown away. My expectations were to get another serviceable plot, which I would call the 2009's Avatar serviceable. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's pretty much the same form of a plot we've seen in hundreds of movies. And so, but it worked, right? It was done. It was Hollywood style, classic Hollywood style storytelling, but it was done pretty much perfect, I would say. Like as far as just the cutting and the acting, there wasn't any performances that like threw you out of it. There weren't like Anthony Hopkins in it, like doing like, stealing the show, but there wasn't anything distractingly bad either. It was all good. Nothing was bad. Everything was good, but nothing was amazing except the visuals. And then, so coming into this one, I think I was hoping for at least basically an on par experience to the first one. Serviceable story, great visuals, and spectacle, essentially, right? And I would say overall, my expectations weren't met, if that makes sense, and I didn't have very high ones, and I think that speaks a lot, at least to me. That says something, because for me, this movie. For me, this really proves that James Cameron, as a filmmaker, has really seemingly departed from the Hollywood style in terms of the narrative being the focus. Because the story isn't the point of this movie, I would say. The point of this movie is to see the visuals, to see the ridiculously lifelike high frame rate 3D stuff. And then the story is there to kind of get us to those moments, it almost feel like. So, yeah, I would say the story was there, and it felt like it just replayed moments we already had with the same characters in the first movie, And yeah, just at the end of the day, it's not what I want out of a movie, out of a big Hollywood movie. Like I love spectacle. I love pretty things. But if you're not giving me a good enough story that makes me care about the characters on screen and be really invested in their stakes, it's hard for me to care how pretty your shots are.
Yeah, so a little backstory on me. Sorry, everyone. I haven't been feeling that great this week. It's just like not even feeling bad. It's just like allergies and waking up and you're stuffy all the time. So I'm sorry if you guys hear me sniffling and stuff. So first off, James Cameron, he has been since, before I ever entered film school. He's always been my top 5 favorite filmmakers of all time. Primarily because he made Aliens and then he made Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which already there is 2 of the best sequels of all time, if not the best sequels of all time. And then, which I mean, just on their own, they're just incredible movies. And then he made arguably my favorite movie of all time. It has become this in the last few years just because I've switched it to be different lately. It's True Lies. And I think True Lies is an incredible movie. Just it has all the things that I like about movies and cinema and spectacle and humor and everything, structure, everything, story. And then, of course, I think Titanic's a great movie. And, I've seen it quite a few times, actually, considering its length. And I think it's also great. I mean, I think he nailed the romance pretty perfectly. It's a perfect romance movie. And it's got spectacle and it's got all these things. I mean, at the time, Titanic was the highest gross movie of all time when it came out. It hit $1 billion, and it was like that was unheard of. But it was the first one to ever do it. Titanic was. Avatar 1 came out in 2009, and I had just started working at the movie theater in Oak Summit Cinema in Batesville, like the month before it came out. That was my first like big movie experience. Like, kind of hit the theater while I was there. If I recall, it came out on December 22nd. And I, weirdly enough, I'm someone that watches everything 1,000 times, like at least 5 times minimum.
Even
just
the movies you don't like.
On movies I don't like, 5 times minimum. It feels like, and that's why sometimes I'm like, man, I haven't seen that many movies. I'm like, I've seen like over 2,500. I'm like, I haven't seen that many movies. I'm like, well, it's because I watched freaking Black Adam 4 times, but weirdly, I watched Avatar only one time in the theater. Like, I worked there and I watched it one time. We had free movie tickets, that kind of stuff. Watched it one time and then I watched it half a time in theaters because I ended up having I watched it half a time and had to go to a shift. Actually, I just walked out of the theater and went to work. I remember sitting in there and thinking, this is like something totally different, like movie-wise, in terms of just what it was giving us in the 3D realm. I wasn't blown away with the story. Even this is before film school, and before I ever thought about going to film school. And this was, because I had seen True Lies and I had seen Terminator and Aliens and even Titanic, and I just kind of felt like this was still like a little low par story-wise for me. And at the time, I didn't understand the comparisons to Dances with Wolves because I hadn't seen Dances with Wolves, still haven't seen it actually. And I don't think I need to since I've seen Avatar.
It's a good. It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
I know it is. Yeah, I've seen a lot of pieces of it. I've never seen the whole thing.
It's Kevin Costner. I feel like,
dude, I love Kevin Costner.
Yeah,
I love him. Yeah. I know. There's some that escape me. You can't watch.
I remember watching. It's this weird thing. I remember like moving into one of our houses as a kid, and I had one of those like shitty tiny TVs that had the VCR built in to it.
Yeah.
And I had no movies to watch, and I was like up in my room like playing with toys while my parents were moving stuff in because I was like 7 or 8, and I just remember like that was the only VHS I had was Dances with Wolves. So
really,
I was just like watching Dances with Wolves like 8 or 9 just because I had nothing else to watch.
It's awesome story, but also like sad. Like back then, it was awful. Probably as a kid.
Yes,
but like
absolutely.
It's cool now. It's a cool. Story.
Yeah, absolutely. As a kid, it was like mind.
It had to be 2 VHSs, right? It had to be.
I don't know.
There's no way that thing fit on one. Really?
Okay.
Wow. I don't know. That thing is like 3 hours long at least, or 3
it was
and a half.
long. Yeah, it was long.
But anyway, I remember sitting there watching it, thinking this is a new step. Like, this is something I have never seen before in terms of just the depth and the quality and like I mean, from there, it kind of started my obsession with, when movies come out on Blu-ray, I always bought the 3D Blu-ray. Like I bought the 3D version, and I always come with the regular version too. So I wasn't just buying things I couldn't watch, but I was like, I made it like an effort to do that. And then I didn't buy Avatar when it came out because actually I didn't buy it because it didn't come out in 3D first. It came out on regular Blu-ray, and then even when the 4K started coming around, when there was an option between DVD, 4K, and then Blu-ray 3D, I still chose 3D over 4K. So like I was still choosing 3D over 4K, and I would say even today, if a 3D movie came out, I would probably still choose a 3D just because I don't know. There's something about I have a lot of I have like the whole MCU, every 3D version of the MCU. I have that up until Guardians 2. That was the last one they did. And I was really sad actually when they stopped producing those in America. They still produce them internationally, but I just don't like buying international Blu-rays for some reason. Hashtag America. And I just, I don't know. I love the format. I could never watch them when I have a 3D TV or anything, but I love the format. And Avatar popularized that, and it became the highest gross movie of all time at $2.7 billion. And it was always kind of like, when's the next one coming out? And then it took all these, it's say 13 years since Avatar 1. He's been working on this since Avatar 1. He's been he had a writer's room getting the script for 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we would hear reports every year saying, okay, oh, he's working on 2 and 3 back to back, and then it's 4, oh now it's 5, 4 sequels with 5. And it's just like, man, what is this man doing? Like, what's happening? And from that time on, it was still like $2 billion was still like this unachievable thing. Right. And like to get to movie wise. And then also on top of that, like we were getting Avatar theme parks and we were getting Avatar video games made, but we weren't getting sequels. And, we know that James Cameron's making all this technology and stuff. I'm doing a long-winded thing here of what you said, but I was very curious because I've seen this written a lot, and I always kind of thought this too, is like, if James Cameron does one thing right, it's like he makes a great sequel. It's like you take the themes of the first one and you take like the same characters, and their want is the same, but their need is different. That's how you make a great sequel. The want is the same, but the need is different. So, and it really works for like franchise stuff, right? So you want to save, like a Superman movie, Iron Man.
Yes.
You want to save the world, but you need to because you got to fix something different about you that you learned about the first time. So like Aliens. Right. Sigourney Weaver, she wants to stop the aliens, but she needs to save this little girl because she lost her little girl. And she needs to feel that motherly, like she needs to become a mom. And then also the alien queen's also a mom protecting her kids. Terminator 2, I want to stop Judgment Day, but I need to, not because I'm saying, like want, that's how you define a great sequel, in my opinion. And I learned that from James Cameron. The want and the need change. The want stays the same, the need changes. So keep that in mind, viewers. It's a great way to look at it. Because people they want to show up for a sequel. They want the things they loved about the first one to be there, but they need to go on a different emotional journey, right? So that's how you want the same kind of world and spectacle, or at least this whatever I'm talking about. So when Avatar 2 comes out, it does kind of follow that. The want is the same, right? I need to, in terms of like the bad guys want the same thing, right?
Yeah,
they want to stop the Na'vi.
The battle for Pandora.
Yeah, and Jake's in the first one. What does he want? Right? He wants his legs back. Really?
Yeah,
he wants his legs back.
Yeah, he wants his life back, legs back, kind of thing. Yeah,
he wants his life back. That's a better way of putting it. Yeah, instead of legs, it is his legs. But he wants his. And so, and the second one, it's like, but what is the one ultimately? He has to stop the Marines destroying the Na'vi, or the U.S. military destroying the Na'vi. That's the like plot want, right?
Yes.
As he's going into it. So, and what's the plot want in this one? Is that it's a little not as strong, because it's like they go off and hide.
Yeah. It's like they aren't trying to. like in the first one, they try to like I don't know if probably need to watch it again. I don't know if it was like a byproduct of the battle or if they intentionally like kicked the U.S. off the planet right at the end of the first one.
Inadvertently, they just leave.
Yes.
I think because
Yes.
they suffer casualties. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're right. Like it feels like, it definitely feels like, if I guess there's a way you can frame it. Like maybe if you wanted to say in the first movie, Jake Sully, if we're saying he's the protagonist, which I think is very debatable in this next movie.
Yeah, well, he's finding his family is what he's doing.
Yes,
he's finding
exactly. Yes, he is finding his fam or finding a place in the world for himself. In the first movie, he does that by finding the Na'vi and finding this kind of new culture and society to integrate himself into. Yeah. In the next movie, he's got a family, so it's more about him finding a place for his family to be safe or to fit in, right?
It's that, but it's like the classic Incredibles. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The first movie is finding your family on these ensemble movies. It's in Avengers 1 and 2. The second one is keeping your family together.
But I wouldn't even say the first movie was an ensemble, though, either. Right? I mean, the first movie was a typical. I mean, Jake Sully was the protagonist. What's her name was the love interest. That other guy was the antagonist. I mean, I feel like it was.
Yeah, no. I mean, I know. I mean, and you're not wrong. I don't think on that, but I'm just saying. Like, I still think that. I think that works in terms of what the movies are trying to do. Like, he's trying to find his family, right?
That makes sense. Protect the family.
The second one is keep it together. You want to protect it, keep it together, make sure it doesn't fall apart, right? And but what's weird is they do this thing, and that he does make decisions in the beginning to protect his family. He moves them.
Yes.
But then the movie becomes the first movie again in a way where it's now we're learning this whole new culture.
Now we're strangers in a new land again. Just slightly different.
Just slightly different. And you do learn a little bit more. You learn a little bit more of their mythology, this tribal mythology.
Yeah. Like the Na'vi as a people group.
And there's like a little a hint here of like, okay, Sigourney Weaver's character, which we'll get into in a second, her young version, she is, she's connected some way, almost like Luke Skywalker is in the Force, right? And so like she can tap into like we'll call it the Force. It's like the same thing, it feels like, right?
Yeah.
The force of these people. And so like that's really the extent of the mythology we're learning. Obviously, like we're learning visually how they do things different, but we don't really learn the history of these people, right? So that's where it's kind of and I guess you could argue that the visuals, obviously it's show not tell, but I think this is a case where telling would have done some benefit and like going to a new land, because in the first movie you're going to a new land and you're understanding like the mother tree and like how and why they do things and like kind of and it's it's more Native American kind of culture, right? Where we live off the land. The land is it's a circle of life sort of thing.
Yeah.
Versus what Americans do, come in and colonize and everything else.
Yes.
So I think that it's weird. The second movie is weird in the fact that he leaves and they do the same thing again, but then it's like the kids are challenged with like being outsiders in the group.
Yeah.
But it's just not as, I don't know. It's very passive.
The family is the protagonist in this one.
It is. It's an ensemble piece.
It's like, what did the family learn? I don't know. Like what can you pinpoint kind of one thematic, like if we could try to nail down like what did this family have to go through to learn to succeed?
It kind of almost feels like they were trying to be like better together, but I don't know.
But it doesn't feel like that was a revelation. It seemed like they knew that in the beginning. You know what I mean? Almost like
that's what Jake was saying. You're right. And
well, I mean, I guess the one son dies, right?
Yes, the older one, the one that we get the least screen time with, I think, dies. Yeah.
Yes.
Which yeah.
But no one learns anything from that I can tell or anything. I mean, It's sad.
No, I
it's
mean-
like it's okay. So that moment right there, that to me is actually a good illustration of like a lot of problems with this movie for me, because I don't feel like they set that moment up at all. Other than like they're setting up that like there's danger, someone might die, and then he dies, right? But as far as like thematically setting up this moment to be kind of this catalyst of change in a character, or to be like a parent watching their child die. That's an incredibly emotional scene. And thematically, and with a character like you're thinking plot-wise, you should be saying, okay, this moment has to change him. Like, what happens here that now allows him to succeed, now allows him to whatever, like that like the movie's like themes, like what this character's journey is on, it culminates in this incredibly painful, emotional high point. And then that has to like go somewhere. That has to mean something. And I felt like in the end of the day, it just felt like, okay, you're just tugging on heartstrings to tug on heartstrings. And honestly, you're doing it in what I feel like is a pretty cheap way. You're doing it. This is an easy way out to make people feel emotions. How do you do it? You have a parent, because there's a lot of parents hold their child while they die. Easy. You're going to get tears in every theater just from that moment. And you don't have to do anything to earn it. And that's what it felt like.
Well, I think, I'm not sure I told you this. I think I told Matt this after the movie on the drive back, but I have a feeling there was at least something that fell off in terms of the small subplot here that directly ties to his son dying, that was cut from the movie, either through the script or through a rewrite or something.
That would make sense.
Here's what I think it is. So, and again, I'm sorry, viewers, like we watched this a couple of weeks back, and I'm trying to remember this long ass 3-hour movie. And all the things,
so
we saw it one time. I've seen it one time. So I think our antagonist, right? What's his big thing is he wants, it's our Stephen Lang character. He's come back to life, resurrected, right? And he's now through an avatar body, which I think is kind of brilliant. Like, I think if you're going to, I think there's a great opportunity. I think, honestly, if you were just ballsy AF, you would have followed him throughout the movie. He would have been the protagonist. Because I think, and there's things that he has said in interviews, which I think he might have been mixing up Avatar 3, because he shot Avatar 2 and 3 and the first act of 4 all together. So I'm like, oh, there's things you said in the interview that I didn't get in Avatar 2. So were you talking about Avatar? Because he's older. I'm like, you're talking about Avatar 2, Stephen?
Right.
But he talked about how, I'm getting a little side thing here, but he talked about how his character is now 2 worlds, right? He's got the brain of a human and all these memories, but he's got the connection to the I can't think of the we'll say the Navi, the connection to the mother and all that kind of stuff. So he's split between these 2 different camps, right? And it's a trope that we've kind of gotten with like Terminator 2, with like Arnold is the bad guy in the first movie, now he's the good guy in the second movie. One of the greatest ideas ever, right? So I think it's a similar like kind of concept there. It would have been ballsy AF to follow Stephen Lang's character as he's in Avatar, and he's got to find Jake Sully, and then he's got to find, like, he finds these water people, and he ends up finding Jake Sully like hidden, and he's got a family, and he's got to decide whether he wants to destroy Jake's family or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's an interesting movie.
That's way more interesting.
And it's shorter, 2 hours, but Stephen Lang's out for revenge, right? Like even if he was not for revenge, he would be like, that's like his new motif, but like nothing would have changed his character if it was revenge or no revenge. But he is out for revenge. So let's put that there. There's that plot with the whale that apparently it looks like the whale went out for revenge, and because he did to these other small war that he did, that the water people shunned him, or the other whales shunned him. And so it's like this cautionary tale of like how revenge is a dish best served cold, and like how it's not good for you. Like it's classic,
was it the kind of thing that like, oh wait, everyone was wrong. Like the whale's a good guy. He like was caught in a moment of right. Like, they weren't like trying to like I felt like with the whale plot by the end they were saying the whale's not at fault here. He didn't do anything bad. Like, it was like he had to like watch his parent get killed in front of him or something, and just kind of went crazy in the moment.
Exactly. He watched his parent get killed in front of, or he watched his kids or parent or someone get killed in front of him. Yes. So I think that was like this subplot within the New Water people's mythology, and I think it was
Right.
supposed to culminate in Jake watching his son die, and that Jake started seeking revenge,
Mirroring
and also
that.
Stephen and Stephen Lang's also seeking revenge, and so because like that's a weird, those are too many coincidences there, and like plot wise, and I think what was going to
Yeah, I
happen
think you're
was
right.
we were going to get to the point where Stephen Lang, like he was going to kill Stephen Lang and chooses not to because revenge is, not it's not
No,
healthy
I
for your
think you're
soul.
right, man. I think you're absolutely that makes that not saying that I'm like, oh,
Yes,
that's what they were trying to do with the whales, because the whales was like,
I
I don't know what
I
this
think
is
so.
about. I
Yeah.
think that's
Anyway,
that's really insightful. And what it does is it
thank
makes me
you.
feel like they shot all of that. And what it makes
Probably.
me think is that because this is a 3 hour and 15-minute movie, and I swear 45 minutes of it is non-dialogue glamour shots,
Yeah, you're right.
at least. And
Yeah.
it's hard for me to believe that probably James Cameron cut out story for those. You know what I mean? You wouldn't
Do
have
you
to take out
believe-
15 minutes of those minutes probably to kind of add in that other story content. It doesn't
Yeah.
take a lot, And so to me, it just makes me feel like, it goes back to my other point. I feel like James Cameron has kind of moved on from the traditional Hollywood method in terms of focusing on story as the point. The story does not feel like the point in this movie. And I feel like,
See, what's interesting, real quick though, is like
go ahead.
all
Go
the
ahead.
reviewers and all the people, like all the reviews say this is a better story than the first one, and I don't. They all say that. They all say that. And
I
I'm
mean,
like,
it's less cookie cutter, right? Because like the first one is a very cookie cutter plot, hero's journey.
yeah,
Right?
I would say that this one is probably more emotional. I mean, just because it's got like,
It's less following. It's less just your typical plot, right? Like it's not like you're
Right.
just your standard Hollywood method plot, and that is, I like that we're trying to get away from that. I like trying to subvert that, right? I think that's interesting. That can be a good idea. But man, like it really like at times it felt like watching The Fifth Element a little bit, like just because it's like it just feels like I don't feel like I'm the audience for this a little bit, because like I want an amazing story. And I don't need the visuals to blow me away. I just need them to support the story. I just don't feel like I'm the
Bruce.
audience.
No, I think you're right. I mean, like that's the thing too. Like, I thought Avatar 1 was the best looking movie I'd ever seen in my life up until that point. And
In
then
terms
I
of
watched,
like looking realistic, yeah,
and then I rewatched it, in theaters
yeah,
like a month or two before it had that re-release, right?
yeah.
And right before Avatar 2 came out, and I was watching it, and I was like, dang. And I hadn't seen a 3D movie since like 2018 because the pandemic, and it was kind of falling apart. And I was like, God dang, I really miss 3D. I'm a 3D advocate, and I was like, I really miss 3D, and I was like, this movie still looks so fucking good 13 years later. And I think, but even when Avatar 1 came out, I was kind of like, this is great looking, but like the Na'vi to me aren't cool.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. It
Like,
feels a little. It almost feels a little like. It feels a little weird. Like it almost feels like I don't know. You getting in an alien body and going having sex and having a family. It's just a little bit like a little icky to me. It's just a little bit like, I don't know. There's just something like slightly like almost it feels like furriness to it. Almost like
Yeah, I wouldn't
you know
go
what I mean?
that far. I mean, I can see it is weird watching like Natiri run around, and like it's always one of those things where,
They're very
the
sexually
small bikini is like always
Yes.
perfectly covering up everything, and it's like a weird thing where you have to like worry about that as like a visual effects art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how close they're coming to like showing
Yeah.
stuff, right? And so like,
Yes.
and the thing is to me, like their body, like it looks so realistic, and maybe it's the reason why it helps us like accept it in our brain that like they look very human like, but I kind of feel like it's almost like they look close enough, but because it's like just different, like it actually kind of pulls me out a little bit, like
Yeah. Well,
almost like Alita
feels-
Battle Angel. Like everything about her
Yes.
is
Like, it's-
good,
it's
but
uncanny
her
valley.
eyes are. Yeah, it's like that's but I still think it looks amazing, right? But
Fidelity wise, yes.
Well, back to my point, like I just think I'm in. I mean, there's a whole literally a religion or cult for Avatar, and we've talked about in private. Like, there's people who are like depressed because Avatar is not a real planet, and or whatever, So, but
I didn't know that.
There's like a group of people that they were so enthralled with the world of Avatar, right? That or Pandora, that they were suicidal and had depression because they couldn't go back to that world and revisit it and all these other things. And like there was a concern about Avatar 2 coming out and like these group of people, whatever, which is absolutely go get mental health, like go get that checked out and stuff.
Yeah, what that's called is that you're probably depressed for a lot of other reasons in life.
Yes,
but you're hyper focusing on this movie and letting it all go about that. But I bet there's a lot of other things that are depressing than the movie.
I agree. That's another conversation. But I to me again, like for me, Avatar is like not a cool look. It looks beautiful. The colors, everything about it. It looks beautiful, but they're not cool.
It feels like they're trying to make them sexy. That's what it feels like. They feel like they're trying to be sexy, but it feels like they're trying. I mean, like how they designed the female Navi. It looks like it's trying to emulate. Like
sexy,
I feel like it's trying to emulate human sexuality a bit, like in like human sexual attractiveness. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, put some more curves on her, and I'll be more into it. But I hear you. But I think, I think the robots in Avatar 1 and 2 are pretty awesome. But I don't think the avatars are cool. Yeah, the mechs, absolutely. Those are fucking cool. Cause I like mechs. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you applied this like a Gundam movie, I'd be like, oh my god, this is incredible. The visuals. You know what I'm saying? So like for me, it's just not my kind of thing. Yeah. And I think I don't know how we got onto that, honestly, but I think
going back to the visual stuff, I think. Listen, if we're talking about what this movie doesn't do well. Let's talk about what it does better than anything I've ever seen. And the visual fidelity. There was one particular shot with Sigourney Weaver's character like playing in the ocean, and it went high frame rate right then, which we can talk about that shit in a minute. But like, it looked like I was watching a nature documentary for a few, not the whole time. Like there would be moments where you would notice like the CGI flick, like something would draw you out just slightly, but like there was a few moments there where you're just like, this could be real. Like this looks photorealistic. Like it looks like I'm seeing an actual being that is a Navi on screen, and the water was just amazing. And like to that credit, I mean, there's nothing that's been that crystal clear. Yeah. Now, was it cinematic? No. I hated it. Every time they went high frame rate to just show off the visuals, I felt like I was watching a nature documentary and not a narrative film. And that is not a feeling I want to have in a movie theater while watching a narrative film. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. I'll say this real quick. You're 100% right. The visual effects in this movie, it's bar none. There's no comparison. Matt kind of said.
And it's going to be a long time before anything gets close. It'll probably be Avatar 3.
Yeah, which is next fall. They've already shot it, I think, because of next Christmas.
That's wild. So, that's weird.
Yeah. And so I think Matt said like one thing, and I'm also disagree with him on this, but he said like, yeah, he goes, I've seen video games that are like close to this, whatever. And I'm like, no, you haven't, dude. In my head, I'm like, this is not.
But I will say to Matt's credit, when the CGI was bad, and it was bad a couple times, I thought I was watching Mass Effect cutscenes.
There was
the train wreck in the beginning.
It was bad. It was bad because of the frame rate. It wasn't the visual effects. It wasn't the visual effects. It was the frame rate that was making it look like a video. It should look like a video game in points. Yeah,
and that makes sense because those video games always do 30 or 60. I mean, there's very rarely video games in 24 FPS. And
especially cutscenes a lot of time. Yes. But I think anyway, for the majority of the movie, I say majority, for half the movie, there's no comparison. The best video game of all time is not even close to what this movie is doing.
Yes.
But there's a moment, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but she's like Sigourney Weaver, I think it's the first time they're swimming underwater, and there was like this little flap or something of like, sort of like her dress or like her shirt, like her sleeve, it like fell off her shoulder while she was swimming.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just the smallest detail. But I literally, when it happened, I thought in my brain as I was watching, it's like, that's the best looking visual effect I've ever seen in my life. Like, I don't know what it was about the motion and the way it fell off her in the water. I just like that little thing struck me more than all other things. I was like, holy fuck, this thing is wild. Like how good this thing looks. It felt like, I mean, it looks almost clearer than real life because I can't see that good. And it's like when you're watching, it's like you're looking through a window sometimes.
Yes.
And
yes.
I give you credit for this. Like I say it's worth going to the theater to watch just for that, because like there's nothing else like that. So I agree.
You're not going to get that experience at home. You're not going to, it's not going to be like that. And I do think like just as an experience, it's probably worth going just for the visuals. Yeah. And I think,
which is what I went to begin with.
Yeah, me too. And I would say too, like kind of going back to what I said about James Cameron, that I feel like James Cameron's moving away from like narrative as the focus. The box office also shows that like American audiences are pretty cool with it as well. And I think that's interesting to me as well, that like this is, to me, it feels like in the vein of Fifth Element, but obviously Americanized aesthetically, right? Like Fifth Element feels, maybe it just feels old. Maybe that's part of it. It just feels like it's from the 90s. But like this is like, we're not focusing on the narrative, but everything else feels like a Hollywood film kind of thing. But it just, because I think I was one of those people that did not expect this movie to break the records it's breaking at this point. I expected it to go over 1 million. I thought 1.5 million was pretty, $1.5 billion, go over 1 billion and 1.5 billion was pretty safe. Like just because, for one, there was nothing else in theaters, and we were still like, which is people aren't going to theater.
Same environment as Avatar 1. I mean, that was kind of like, it was like,
yeah,
Avatar
right.
1 was like number 1 for like 17 weeks or something.
It was a long time.
That was like the start of like, oh, let's put big blockbusters in December. Like that was, Avatar started that, and then Star Wars ended up taking that spot. That's what happened.
Yeah, so it's just interesting to me that audiences, from like general audiences, I would say I hear a lot of the same critiques we have from film people, and like in like film subreddits, I've seen some people talk about it in these terms, like and kind of bring up the critiques we're bringing up. Yeah. But in terms of general audiences, and I'm just talking anecdotally from small things I see on the internet, it seems like everyone loves it. Like no one cared that the story was what it was. Everyone thought it was fine or great or good enough. Like it didn't bother them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the spectacle was enough to carry them through. You know what I mean? And like,
we're just getting too good, Daniel. We're getting too good at plot and story and stuff. It's starting to bother us now. Maybe
it is, and maybe this is like, maybe James Cameron is starting to push the Hollywood industry to a new place slightly. I mean, it's just interesting.
I don't think he's sitting there. I mean, granted,
I don't think he's doing this like I don't think he's planning to change the industry. I feel like he's upset. He's obsessive. It feels like James Cameron is an obsessive guy. When he gets set on something, that's what he does, lives and breathes. Well, and so I can see the pull to be like, man, like when you have those shots, I can't deny, like, I almost just want those shots in a super clip, and just let me just watch, and like with pretty music as a special
watch
feature.
40 minutes. Yeah. Well,
turn it like that would be do an actual nature documentary on Pandora and put it as a special feature and show all your pretty shots. Like that would be, for one, funny and hilarious. Like do it like a fake Planet Earth episode or something.
Sure.
And for two, then you go buck wild, show every prettiest frame of anything you got.
I think it's one of those things like when you unearth gold, sometimes you want to tell all the press. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's one of those things like once you make that you spend 10 years of your life and 10 years is a long time in someone's life. Of your life creating a world and technology and doing all the research. I mean, this man's like, he goes in submarines underwater. Like he's like, I think the lowest diver ever in submarines or something. So like, he does this kind of stuff. And so like, I think that, he has the ability to show it off. He's wanting to. And funny enough, he's confident that, like, it's funny. I think it's funny reading like the interviews and everything else. And because it's like, he's not a dick about it. He's just kind of like, either you're going to watch it or you're not, like, and I bet
Yeah.
you're going to watch it a couple times. And you know what? It's funny because he's right. I think those kind of things are funny I think they're okay when they're right about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not being mean about it. He's just being like this. Well, look at he's not saying the greatest of the world, but he is like, he's got the number 1 movie of all time and the number 3 movie of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, and he's fixing to have the number in like 3 weeks. 3 weeks, he'll probably have number 5th movie of all time. You know what I'm saying? And like he'll be 3 of the 5 of all time. And you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's like wild. That's wild that he keeps doing that. And I think that, I don't know, let him indulge. And I think the thing is the fear, I think, Daniel, that maybe comes, that you might be thinking of or feeling, is that you might be getting more movies where they're focused on the prettiness versus the plot, and plot is always king in our opinion, right?
Yeah.
And like, but the thing is, it's just not. This is just not for us. I mean, I think that's the thing. What you kind of said earlier. This is, I'm going to watch.
It is for us because we wouldn't
again.
watch it, right? We were targeted and we went.
The technology is for us. Like the visuals are for us. Like we are.
Yes.
I mean, even if we don't like
the technical aspects of the film.
I enjoyed a lot of it. I enjoyed the experience, and I think what is for us is sitting in a movie theater with a lot of different people and watching something that can only be experienced in the theater. And he did do that.
Yes.
I just think that he didn't nail. I just don't think he nailed the plot this time. The first time was serviceable in terms of like classical Hollywood structure and like a serviceable expectations, like a huge new paint job around it. The second one just didn't land as hard. Part of that was because it wasn't as tight.
I would just say there was less plot. There was just less plot in some ways. There was more. It was more complicated because we had characters like Spider, which we'll just say did not like Spider at
I did
all. He acted like he was the kid in Jungle to Jungle, the Tim Allen movie where he adopts a kid from like jungle, and like he walked like a monkey, which was weird. I didn't like. Were there monkeys in Pandora? I didn't see any. So why did he walk like a monkey?
That is weird. Yeah.
And then it just felt like every time he opened his mouth, the dialogue that was written for him was not good, and his performance of it it felt very Disney Channel to me.
And also, he didn't look cool. Looking cool.
No, it was a little white kid with dreads. That no.
Well, and with the mask, just doesn't look cool.
No, yeah.
Look cool.
And then he just he would like growl at people, and it just sounded dumb, man. It just sounded really dumb. I feel bad because that's not the actor's fault. I feel like he's
it's not. It's not. That's an interesting plot with Stephen Lang and his son and that kind of stuff. But I just think that
I agree.
It's weird having there's a lot that happened in between Avatar 1 and 2 that I think might have been beneficial to show. Like I think that could have been, obviously anything can be its own movie. But I feel like the war I saw in the beginning of the movie and him birthing his children, I feel like those are more interesting things than what we got in the movie.
Well, even to say, I think the most interesting part of the narrative is Stephen Lang and his son. Like, where is that going to go, and how will that play out? Because that feels like either he's going to like end up kind of coming to the light side by the end of it, kind of Darth Vader style, or will he be the one or his son has to kill him? You know what I mean? Like it feels like that's going in an interesting direction where there's going to be stakes, and it won't just be Pandora or blow it up or military. It'll be like interpersonal stakes, which I think could be really interesting.
It feels like Spider may even go bad, and then Stephen Lang could go good.
I have expected him to leave with him by the end of the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he did, and it surprised me that he didn't. It's interesting.
But I will say this: I really started to enjoy the movie when Stephen Lang and them attacked the when we hit the nighttime scenes, particularly. Like I thought the action there with the Tiri taking out those group of soldiers because she's pissed. Like she's like let's fucking go. Her and Jake.
Oh, dude, that was badass.
Together. That was good. Like that's like okay, look, there's James Cameron. Like I was like, there's James Cameron. And then there's like that moment, like whenever they're walking away, and Stephen Lang's like, "I'll come for your family. I'll just keep coming." Yeah. And he I love like that's like this is James Cameron. And just talking about it. he just turned around. All right, let's do this. Like it's just like
Yeah,
when he says that.
let's finish it then, or whatever he says. It's
Yeah,
great.
all right,
line.
let's finish it then.
It's
Like,
it's such a like ordinary word. Like it doesn't sound. It's not like I'll be back. It's not like a classic one liner. It's kind of an ordinary phrase, but just the way he says it, it just has this like he says it just so casually. And then just like, let's do this thing. Like, and he's just like, oh yeah, that was cool. I like it. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
And so I like that. Like to me, I saw old James Cameron in there sometimes. You know,
for sure.
I'll say another thing we didn't really talk about. I think it's Fly the Conchords guy. I can't think of his name.
Oh yeah,
that was
so weird. I don't know.
That was really bad. I thought like
it was weird comic relief that, and then they kept making jokes about how like we shouldn't be like doing like it felt like it was Jermaine, right? Jermaine Clement.
Jermaine, yes.
And him and the other guy that was like the leader of the whaling people, like when they were like fight a part of the battle, it kept cutting in and they kept kind of making these like we really shouldn't be doing this whaling anyway. I guess this is what we deserve. Like kind of like
it's
weird.
It's really
weirdness. Weird. It's weird.
It is weird. Yeah, it's like and then he helps the Na'vi, but it's like you're helping he dies.
Well, and yes, he does, and it feels like this weird like Avatar 1 was save the trees, Avatar 2 is save the whales. Right, which feels a little like it just feels like are we trying to just insert that like kind of environmental little bit plot like into it that feels like it doesn't feel necessary to the plot at all. We don't need to know that.
No, you know, I think well, yeah, I mean, obviously there's some environmentalism throughout the whole thing. You have to when you do a movie about nature and war and colonization, right?
Yes.
It's not. I think even if you tried to not do it, it would just people would extrapolate that from it.
Yes, you're right.
But we know this just based on recent reports. So one, Avatar 1 is the Na'vi, right? And they're air, like they're flying on dragons. Yeah. Avatar 2 is water, right? Like they're in the water. We now know Avatar 3 is fire people. They're
which,
very
by the way,
Na'vi.
that is literally the order of the Avatar seasons. The Last Airbender.
I was getting there. Yeah.
Water, fire.
Well,
that can't be coincidence. You share a name. Like,
then also there's Avatar 4 and 5, and they said that, and one of the producers came out and said, yeah, Avatar 5, we're going back to Earth, so Natiri can kind of see what Earth is like and kind of get a different perspective of what Earth is now. And so it's like, but that's another element, like in the most funny, obvious way. So you have air, water, fire. 4 would
eventually
be
Earth.
Well, isn't there 5 elements? So there's energy.
No, there's only 4 in Avatar. That's Airbender.
Well, okay. I'm not talking like an actual like Chinese mythology or whatever.
Air,
so like,
water,
but anyway,
wind, fire.
Oh, wind.
I said that one.
I guess that kind of counts as air. I don't know.
Air and wind are the same thing, yeah. Typically.
Okay. So anyway, you're getting literally Earth, like planet Earth, and 5.
Yeah.
So it's like that is a weird kind of thing. I don't really think they're copying Avatar: Last Airbender.
No.
But I do think it's like they're obviously playing on the elements. Like that is,
yes.
It's stupid for me to even say it out loud, but that's what they're doing. And it's like, I just wonder, okay, is Avatar 3, they're going to leave again and go find the fire people? And
I mean, I feel like
culture.
Yeah. I mean, that feels kind of predictable now in that way that feels a little less interesting, like in a way that like, it just feels like we're taking the same plot and changing a few things and doing it again. And
they had been saying, of course they have been saying this, but they're like, if you liked Avatar 2 and you thought it was like gut wrenching, blah, 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 then like, you can't wait for Avatar 3.
I didn't think it was gut wrenching. So
yeah, well, I'm saying, but like, they're like, everyone's like, this is like 3 is like the whoa. And like, apparently he turned in the notes for Avatar 4 and the notes from the executive was holy fuck. And James was like, well, what's my notes? And he was like, that's the note. Like there's no notes in the script in Avatar 4 or whatever. And like, there was like a page and a half of notes for Avatar 2 or 3 or something.
Sure.
But I'm curious. One cool thing to maybe look forward to, don't know how they're going to pull it off. But is seeing all the tribes come together to fight in one big thing, or have a civil war of tribes.
That makes me think Avatar 5 is going to be just Pandora versus Earth, and like Na'vi versus humans on like a galactic scale, space scale, almost like kind of thing, which would be
very
interesting. I would be down for that. Give me a nice like war movie. Cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it feels like I don't know. We also have Star Wars: The Force Away, or sorry, we have the Force in the Navi. It feels like in some way she's like literally can control the plant life, and like it feels very Force like. I mean, what else to explain it? Last thing, Daniel, let's talk about Sigourney Weaver's character here. I think like for me, I was like, oh man, like I'm having a hard time not seeing Sigourney Weaver, 70-year-old Sigourney Weaver in this kid's body.
That's who I heard I mean, I feel like it should have been obvious, but a 70-year-old woman doesn't sound like a 13 or 14-year-old kid.
Yeah. They did modulate her voice. Like
not enough.
We know this. Like, well, I just think that I don't know. There's something different about. I just don't know a 70. I'm sure they can, but the way they move, obviously, and I think it's just like even if you're 90% there, I think that 10% makes a huge difference.
And I think it's not so much her voice, I think they like raised the pitch of the voice a little bit. Like it's not that, like that stuff they did to kind of imitate a younger voice is fine. It's just like how she talks doesn't sound youthful for me. Like it feels like someone trying to emulate youthfulness that is not a youth. Like it kind of feels hello fellow kids, kind of like that SNL skit, like that's what it felt like a little bit to me.
And I hate to say that I love Sigourney Weaver. I think she's amazing.
I just think the easy choice was just to use a different voice. I mean, I guess I get he wants to have her in because like they're long time buddy like kind of their careers blossomed together in some ways, and I get it. Also, it's just weird to me that like a human had sex with her Navi body. When did that like? Isn't she in a coma by the end of Avatar 1?
Yeah, that's kind of a mystery in Avatar 2 is like who's the mom or who's the dad.
Exactly. But so like, was she pregnant at the end of Avatar 1, or did they just like this all happen off screen?
It all happened off screen.
So someone impregnated her so someone raped her while she was in a coma?
She was never in a coma. Like she's only in a coma at the very end
of Avatar 1.
It seemed like she's a test tube baby. So like she was born like in a test. Like she was
Is that
taking
what
the DNA.
I thought they had like a flashback of her like pregnant Sigourney Weaver in the pod.
No, I'm pretty sure she was just like. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure she's
So who made her?
That's the question. We know Sigourney Weaver and some other dad.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so for one, it feels like what it feels like is just an excuse to have Sigourney Weaver in the movie without having her character like alive or something. Maybe.
Well, it's literally James Cameron doing a Terminator 2, and he's like, "Hey Arnold, I'm bringing you back, but I'm making you a different character."
Yes,
so I mean, like,
yes, and
because
so
I like you, Arnold.
I guess so. It was really distracting every time she was talking.
I think it just
threw me out, and especially because I feel like the actors for the other kids did a really good job. I feel like they all felt like kids. They felt real.
They did.
Like even the older boys, I felt like they did a good job of like coming off as like kind of what it felt real. It felt like what it felt real to the world, and then just Sigourney did not at all, and it was unfortunate.
No, you're right. There's a weird thing there too with like that boy sometimes making bad mistakes, sometimes just obviously perception of making bad mistakes, and Jake's just constantly like, you're fucking up like 4 or 5 times. I'm like,
I do want to say it definitely like shows Jake of kind of being this old school like I feel like 70s and 80s like patriarchal dad that like treats his kids like they're in military camp. Or his boys, like they're they're cadets instead of like humans.
Yeah. And to be fair, they are like in a war at the beginning, and
he is military. He is a military person, so some of that makes sense. But it is.
But I do think that
it is a little just
interesting to navigate those waters a little bit more.
I think they should try to develop that. I would be disappointed if it just stays that way, because in some ways it feels like a little archaic that you're trying to kind of show this healthy family dynamic where the dad acts like this all the time is like It's not healthy. Yeah.
And although I appreciate I appreciate them, at least you're going to do a montage, like there is a voiceover in the beginning. I think it's kind of weird to have it if he's not the main character. And I feel like the movie's kind of shifts a little bit back to him in the final act.
Does he have the voiceover
like,
at the end though? Doesn't he voice over the end of the movie? Maybe.
I think he does.
I think he does too. Who voices over the beginning? Do we know the voice?
It's him.
So the beginning of the movie, who does the voice?
I think it's him.
Oh, okay. Oh, you were saying it's weird to have him do the voiceover when he's not the protagonist.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand. Like it's mirroring the first movie. Like I get that. But I think I don't know.
And there's just honestly, there's been so much that's happened off screen. I don't know how you get into that movie without that.
No, I agree if you do it that way.
But that to me is that's sloppy. That to me feels a little sloppier than like finding a way to naturally work in the exposition.
Exactly. That's my point. I feel like it's sloppy and it doesn't match to me if Jake's not the true protagonist.
Yes.
And I feel like Jake's not the most interesting character in cinema. Like in the first movie, he's just he's us. We're exploring Pandora with him. He's literally like an empty vessel.
He is a bit.
What I'm saying? Like he's not
generic like military protagonist guy.
Yeah, he's not a whole bunch of personality. He's got a little bit, but he's not.
It doesn't need much for this role. I mean, especially in this movie. Because this movie didn't need him to show much.
Yeah, so I get that, but I don't know. That's a small pet peeve there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we kind of summed it up pretty well here in terms of.
It's this interesting thing of I have so many problems with this movie, but I do think it's worth watching at least once. You know what I mean?
I think in theaters.
Yes, I think it's worth seeing. It's almost like if you don't see it in theaters, I almost wouldn't recommend you just watching it at home. I'm not sure there's enough that maybe it is. Maybe it translates really well and you have an amazing TV. But I almost would say watch it in theaters, or I don't know if it matters. It's almost not as worth it without the theater experience.
The last thing we didn't talk about is my probably biggest gripe was the high frame rate.
Oh yeah, we need to touch on it at least a little bit.
I think there's some people that have said I saw some people oh, it's only 20%. No, it's literally
there's no way.
It's literally every other shot, and that's the problem is that it feels arbitrarily chosen.
It feels like the only decision is does it look better, and to James Cameron, it feels like that's the
to James Cameron, and I feel like there's times where I can't exactly nail it. And I can't I don't know. I need to watch again in that scenario, but I can't tell if it's either in wide shots when there's a lot of where the perception is a lot it's a wider shot, but the characters are moving slowly. Well, there's depth, but they're moving slowly because it's a wide shot, right?
Yeah.
Like a plane moving. I don't know if it looks better then, or if it's a closer up when they're doing action, and then what I'm saying
yes.
And I don't know. I need to watch it again because I feel it was so jarring. I even couldn't tell which one I preferred better. In some cases,
I mean, I would always prefer 24p if I'm watching a cinematic movie.
No. I meant which lens works better with the frame rate, which means
yes,
and then what I'm saying.
But it's all digital too, anyway. It's all digital, so it's a digital lens.
Well, I'm saying you're right. So I'm saying, I'm saying I would like to know maybe just for myself or for us or for James Cameron, when do you use it? When's the best time to use that? Is it in these wider shots or is it in the action close-up shots? Or, what I'm saying? I don't know. I'd like to watch it again and make a decision. But
yeah, I mean, to me, it makes sense that you would not want it with a lot of action because 24p gives you that really nice motion blur that feels good. And if you go above that, you're really losing all that blur. And it looks crystal clear, and I think that to me looks like a soap opera when there's a lot of action with crystal clear like that.
Yeah, but the other example though is when you're cranking up the shutter speed and stuff is Winter Soldier. When they're John Wick, when they're doing those high intensity stuff. That's what that is. It's maybe it's just shutter speed.
I think it's lower. Isn't it just it's not changing the frame rate. It's just changing the shutter speed. I think
shutter speed. Okay, so yeah.
So it feels like there's less frames in it. I think it feels a little more doesn't it feels a little more
changing the shutter speed is looking at a ceiling fan and you can see all the individual blades versus none
Right. And
You know what
so
I'm
it
saying?
feels like a slower shutter speed. So it makes it feel like there's less, like it makes the action feel more like abrupt versus like you know what I
Sure.
mean? I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the effect of that.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay,
But
yeah.
yeah, no,
So
it was, there was no method to it, right? There was no, it felt
No,
like
that's
every
the
other
problem.
shot. And it just felt, again, that felt it felt like a sloppy decision. Like just,
Yeah.
just,
The thing is,
this one, I'll switch it back.
I
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I don't think it. I just don't think it was like James Cameron's a perfectionist. I think like I'd like to know for some reason he
Yeah.
felt those were better. I just don't think they were. I would almost either watch the
No.
whole movie in high frame rate and just get used to it, or watch the whole movie in 24. Because when
I
it was
agree.
24, I was like, "Fuck yeah!" This is
Every
like a
time it would
movie, and,
swip,
like
it would throw me out.
it did, yeah. When it was 24, though, I was like, "This looks." I mean, we'll get to like composition in a second, but it's like this looks, at least way more movie like, but you're getting the
Yes.
ultra realism of like the visual effects, and you're getting the 3D depth. Like this is like feels like a movie now again, or
Yes.
more like a movie. And there's also like I do think there's times, of course, there's really beautifully composed shots and stuff, but I do think when you have that kind of freedom sometimes in like literally like just a giant room when people wearing suits and
Yeah.
you're just recording the movement and you put the camera anywhere, I think you're losing like at least an aspect of filmmaking that I enjoy, which is like I'm watching The Fablemans right now. I'm almost done with it. I had to stop it last night because it got late. I'm going to finish it tonight, I think. But like, there's composition, like blocking of actors, and like you can only go so far because the camera can't go these other places, and so you have to be creative in terms of the framing.
Well,
And
yes.
like that's what I find interesting, and like, and I know it's different. It's not bad. It's just different. But I think that it kind of also makes a movie sometimes,
Yes. Having to work in a physical space that has limits, that has you can only move this way or that way. You don't have enough space. It forces you to get creative. It forces you to say, well, I need the shot to feel like this, but I don't have, how do I do this? And then you end up, a lot of times that process is what gets you like the best shots of the movie, is having to be creative and figure out how to adapt to the space to get what you want. And then you figure out and you're like, oh, this looks better than I wanted it before when I didn't think I had the space for it.
And it's not necessarily like, it's not what is the prettiest shot. It's what is this shot? How is this shot telling the story that I'm trying to tell?
Yes.
Like, how is the shot enforcing the narrative? And like, that is super important. And I feel like I thought there's times we got that in Avatar. And it could be luck. It could be just like, there's like that moment where like he's touching the well. It's in the trailer, right? That's a beautifully composed shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to find that in the CGI realm. Like, go down to the bottom and look up to the water backlight or the sun backlighting them. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's an easy find. But like, and it tells a story, that shot. But like most of it, I feel like it was just kind of like, I don't know. It didn't feel as cinematic as it could have been in terms of shot. It didn't feel as
intentional. And I think when we say cinematic, that's what we're kind of talking about, where every like light on the screen is there for a reason. It's there just bright. It's like everything is intentionally chosen, from the props to the background to everything. And it feels like, I agree. It feels like when you're just doing everything CGI, it's almost like that. It's the same thing. That's like when you just scroll on Netflix and there's so much to watch and you can't pick anything.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say.
It's like decision anxiety, and it creates this like you're second guessing yourself. Like, dude, do I want to watch that? Do I not? You know what I mean? And it's not like it almost feels like that may have been got in the way in this process, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, dude, mind freak right now. I literally was like, they say Netflix, but that's what it is though. It's like. It's having too many options, and and you're right. You're second guessing yourself. And the big thing I always remember is, I think it's Alfred Hitchcock, is that he would only shoot just enough to know how to cut it. And because in that way, whenever he brought it to the studios, they'd be like, well, we don't like this. He's like, well, that's all I shot, you motherfucker.
Pretty fucking smart.
So like, that's what you get. And like, you have to cut it the way I shot it, because he was cutting.
Unless you want to pay me to go do reshoots, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that wasn't a thing back. Reshoots weren't a thing back then.
Yeah.
So, as far as I know. So, I that's, to me, like, that's having a true vision in terms of like, how to tell a story. And James Cameron can do that. But I just think when you have too many options, it's like I was telling Katie, or I was telling Kimberly last night that, watching The Fablemans, like in the movie, he's like, it's Steven Spielberg's autobiography. He's cutting the film, right? And she goes, man, I bet that I bet you don't, like, aren't you happy you don't have to do that when you edit? And I was like, 100%. I was like, they had to be super intentional with the cuts they were making. They could always recut it and spice up together, but it's like way more work. And
like they did it on like film. Did he cut it on like an old film, like old style?
In the movie, it's his autobiography, like how he got into movies. So in the movie, he's making movies on like 8mm and stuff like that. So it's like,
does he play himself in it, or is it
Spielberg? He CGI'd his young self.
No, I was wondering if it like starts with him as like an old man, like kind of like present day, and then flashbacks or something.
It's not his name. It's not. And there may be. I don't know. I haven't done the research yet. I think it's like a loose thing. I don't really know yet. It feels like it's
I don't think it's a direct, like, it's not just verbatim.
It feels like it's just like a fantasy version of his life or something.
And
that
just
he also
going back
made.
To what you're saying too, I think, even the CGI, like that presents like it's like decision anxiety because there's no limits. I think also because of James Cameron is who he is, and he literally has a blank check. Like, does he have a budget limit? Probably not. Like, if it is, it's probably like so high that he would never reach it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it feels like that is another thing.
$3 billion
that forces you to make decisions, right? Well, I want to do it like this. We don't have the budget. We got to figure out a different way to do it. That doesn't. I doubt he ever ran into that in this process. There was always the budget to do whatever he wants, and while that feels good as a filmmaker, it's like no holds barred, like a blank check. Maybe that isn't as helpful to getting something that is more interesting on the other side. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, you're right. The best example ever, maybe like in like the worst output is something like a Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yes.
I saw this on Ragnarok specifically, even though Ragnarok turned out to be pretty decent for the most part. But even then, it didn't feel cinematic. And a lot of it doesn't in some places, like the Valkyrie scenes, because it's like very intentional and it's like a certain style. And there's a lot of shots in Ragnarok and more so in Love and Thunder, like where this happens. And the fact that I saw on behind the scenes, it's like there's Chris Hemsworth standing there. And I swear to God, it's like 20 cameras pointed at this man.
Yes.
20 different it's like a rig of like just angles, and like it's like, how would you even like it sounds like a horrible idea. Like, I know why they're doing it,
shotgun
because
approach.
They want it's literally what it is. They want to, like, have every option available because they're spending $200 million on the movie.
Yes, and they can't
that,
get
in that case.
Yeah,
in that case, it worked out for them, right? In Love and Thunder,
yes,
it did not. And you can tell, like, there's times like this doesn't look cinematic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks like they have 50 shots they chose poorly. You know what I'm saying? Like, they chose poorly on this case,
Yes.
I think it's but then you look at something like Jojo Rabbit, where he has an infinitely less budget than Thor: Love and Thunder.
One of my favorite movies of the last 10 years.
Yeah, and it's like, his budget wasn't as high. He didn't have as many camera angles and shots, and he had to be like more intentional, I would think.
Yes.
And I feel like that looks like a movie. It looks like the shots are telling a story.
I love the cinematography. I mean, the production design and cinematography of that movie is great.
It's great. I mean, is there a single moment in Love and Thunder, at least in my opinion, where like he's walking out of a house and like he ends up walking up to his mom's, or the camera pans to his mom's feet dangling?
Yeah, no, I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's like how he's revealing information, and like the shot comes. You know what I'm saying? Like that is true filmmaking right there. I don't feel like we got. I can't think of a single moment in Love and Thunder that stands out to me like that. Maybe other than when they're on the boat,
it almost feels like Marvel is becoming, though, this place where like filmmakers can go and not have to follow the rules of filmmaking. So they just kind of treat it as this, like, I'm just going to go out and have fun, fuck around for a little while, make something. And I don't have to worry about all the normal things I have to worry about with, like, making sure everything's meticulously done. Part of it is because they may not have the power. Maybe there's producers in place that make some of those decisions for them. And so they just aren't given the control to do that as much. But, I think it does have that. Right now, it feels like there are certain movies, genres that just Or like, I mean, some of the biggest blockbusters we're getting right now are kind of losing some of their narrative magic that we used to get with things even like Die Hard, or like you brought True Lies, these like kind of classic action films that we don't get anymore because of MCU movies, because of DC has kind of taken that part of the market up. And
man, if you want to like, I mean, sidebar, Daniel, if you want like a class, go watch the cinematographer commentary. There's a cinematographer commentary on the Die Hard DVD or Blu-ray. It's Jean Dupont. He's a French cinematographer, and that guy, like, it's like a perfect marriage of like French cinema, American cinema, like style, and like that movie is we covered on the podcast. I was gonna say you haven't seen it, but you have seen it.
I have.
That movie is a fucking movie. Taking it, like just the way it's filmed and everything, it's all intentional. It's like so intentional. But it's weird because Marvel feels like they had the stigma in the beginning that they weren't like the studio system, that they were just like filmmaker friendly. And then like obviously we had reports and filmmakers falling off and things like that happening. And then it's like I mean, like you look at something like Winter Soldier, that feels like the Russo brothers in control. At least they had a vision. Guardians of the Galaxy feels like there's a vision there. I mean, you can watch Guardians of the Galaxy and then also watch Suicide Squad, and you know it's like, okay, that's two different studios, but they feel very similar in their shot composition sometimes.
Feels like James Gunn is all over it. Yes.
Yeah, you know, but then you watch something like Thor: Love and Thunder, or even Doctor Strange has tons of Sam Raimi in it. It does, but it's like it feels like sometimes there's the filmmaker mixed in with the studio system. And like it clashes and it doesn't feel cohesive. Look at Infinity War and Endgame; those movies feel like intentional. It's like they really tried on. You know what I'm saying? Like the Russo brothers just like fucking tried. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know it. I mean, Eternals has its own vision. You know, I hate to be like shitting on it all the time. Like it has a certain stylistic look to it. It's different. It's so different. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes they just like it's this weird hodgepodge that just doesn't always. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it quite yet.
Yeah, no,
How can our listeners write into us, Daniel?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail. Let us know what you thought of Avatar: The Way of Water. Were you on our side of the camp, more in this critical kind of had some narrative issues and some other character issues that were hard to get past, or maybe the spectacle and the visuals carry you the whole way through and none of that even kind of registered on your radar? And that's great. I mean, I think, I almost wish I could watch the movie that way. So let us know, bit.ly/241mail. Let us know what you thought.
Oh, Daniel, how I wish sometimes I could erase this cinema knowledge so I could enjoy movies again.
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, there's sometimes it's like you can walk in and I do a really good job of turning my brain off sometimes. It's just when the movie starts kind of failing.
Yeah. It's pulling me out. It's frustrating because it's like I'm trying to get lost in you. I want to suspend my disbelief and just be here, but you're making it hard.
It is, yeah. I want every time to forget I exist and to like become the characters, and I want to cry and laugh and be mad, and I want all of that. But my filmmaker brain sometimes kicks in, and I'm like, that was weird.
Yes,
and then I start thinking about things, and then you can't not,
and then you pull on the thread, and then it just starts unraveling. Yeah,
and also we're that's why I think I watched movies so many times. I'm trying to absorb it, and then I'm trying to enjoy it the first time, and then as like my end of the year movie list, I have my top 10. Like Black Adam was like number 5. After I watched it because I just come out of it, and then but rewatching it, which I liked it better the second time. Rewatching it, but then there's that, and then there's your cat's. Needs a better view outside.
Yeah.
There's watching it and then watching it again, and then there's also not only what does the movie make me feel, but now it's almost like this is another conversation. But what does that movie mean in the larger scheme of things compared to other movies? It's like, is it just initial viewing? Is it like we never review it, and then it's like, okay, well now Black Adam means nothing in the DC universe. So there's nothing now when I watch it, I do have this well, this is just like a one-off thing that doesn't tie into anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's all these different things that happen when watching a movie and watching it multiple times. And, I hope people understand that. And I know you feel this way too. We never want to go into a movie wanting it to fail. I don't think we do.
No.
I don't. Like I want every movie. I have enjoyed thoroughly watching this movie climb the charts because I like the idea that James Cameron can't be beat. I think it's a fun thing to think about.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it deserves it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I don't know yet. It won't reach number one. I don't think.
No. I don't see.
I don't
the
think
thing is with the last
three.
one,
I just think
the last one came out and it launched smaller and it kind of grassroots itself into being in every theater for 17 weeks, right? But it wasn't like people weren't lining up to see it day one. At least I didn't know of that. And so it is this weird thing of this movie is going to have a lot more front loaded box office income. I can't see this being in the front of the box office for 17 weeks. There's no way.
I'll tell you right now, it will be. It will be.
I mean, Quantumania comes out within the next 17 weeks. You know what I mean? Like other things that are going to happen.
Okay, sure. February 18th. So by the time February 18th hits, Ant-Man will beat it easily domestically.
Yes.
You're right. That's the thing. It has legs, So what was it? The third week was like.
The thing before is
a 0.2 increase, which is that never fucking happens ever.
Right.
Ever.
And I would say too, Avatar 1 didn't have competition. Avatar 2 is, to me, directly competing with Marvel blockbusters. It feels like it is going for the same scale, the same budget, everything, right? And so it's trying to hit that same massive audience appeal. And so it does feel different in that there are movies coming out that we know will knock it off first place. And that
and
the first time
studio.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting too is it's also different because they knew this 2 years ago. Ant-Man is going to be in February. Avatar, even if also the thing is they got to constitute the pandemic as well. But now there's an extra factor here, the D factor, the Disney Plus factor, and it's okay, what's the maximum amount we can get? But then how long is waiting too long before people would. Before we don't or do put it on Disney Plus, that's a big get for Disney Plus. It's huge. So it's if we waited, 15 weeks and then we put Ant-Man out and then we put Avatar 2 out 3 months later. You know what I'm saying? They've done the math.
Yes.
They're okay with Ant-Man 2 coming out on February 18th.
Listen, it's already made over 1.5 billion. If it stopped being in theaters tomorrow, it's still a fucking success. And ginormous one.
Absolutely. And also the thing is, it's not just the movie that's making money. It's Disney Plus. It's the merchandise. It's their theme park. It's the game coming out. It's all
the theme park open?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it is. But it sounds like a horrible theme park to me.
Oh my God. Yes. Cool. Yes. The only theme park I ever want to go to now is the Star Wars one. And so I can build my own $200 lightsaber. That is the only thing that is interesting to me at any theme park anymore. As I want to go inside the life-sized replica 1-to-1 scale Millennium Falcon and sit in the goddamn cockpit and pretend I'm Han Solo, go build a lightsaber and go home. I'll be the happiest kid that's ever existed.
I cannot wait.
If you describe that to little Daniel, he would start crying of joy. You know what I mean? How amazing that hey, let's go see a real Millennium Falcon and build your customizable Build-A-Bear style lightsaber. Anyway,
we
need to. Dude, we have to go to that together someday. That would just be.
I would love to. It'd be incredible. Absolutely. But okay. Sorry, we got on the tangent there. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Right.
I'm curious. I can't wait. Maybe in we will talk about Avatar's numbers at some point on a pod.
Yes.
And
probably the next time we talk about Ant-Man. I mean, even it will be brought up. The next time another big blockbuster hits.
Yeah, I think that will be a good time to talk about it, just to check back in and just see where it's at, because it will hit 2 billion. We'll see how high it climbs, though. The first one made 2.7, and it's now at 2.9 with its re-release. Force Awakens and Infinity War both hit 2 billion. So you have Infinity War, Force Awakens, Titanic, Endgame, and then Avatar. So that's kind of the hierarchy there. So we'll see what happens.
Indeed.
Anyway, my name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.